Yes, whisper it quietly, but Rangers will be back playing competitive football in just 5 weeks' time. Well, that's the plan anyway, as the SPFL set the firm target of the first weekend in August for the return of top-flight football in Scotland. So much has happened since Steven Gerrard's men last took to the field way back on March the 12th when we went down 3-1 to Bayer Leverkusen, in a match that in hindsight probably shouldn't have been played, and certainly not with supporters at Ibrox. But as we gear up for the new season, which will also include the second leg against the German side, as well as the next season's Europa League qualifiers, not a great deal will have changed around Ibrox just yet. Yes, we have brought in youngster Calvin Bassey from Leicester and John McLaughlin as a reserve keeper. But the rest of the Ibrox squad will have been part of things last season, and although the gaffer has hinted at some more new faces coming in, it seems like we'll once again be relying on the same important players. So we are going to cover those guys on today's video on the Rangers News YouTube channel, but before we do that, we'd just like to put out our usual shout for anyone who fancies subscribing to the channel. We do have positive plans ahead for July as we build up to the return of the Gers, and we'll be keeping you updated with that as time goes on. So if you're interested, please take the time to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Gers boss Steven Gerrard may have brought in McLaughlin to bolster his goalkeeping options earlier this week, but it is almost certain that the former Hearts man will only be viewed as a backup to Allan McGregor. The veteran keeper, who's probably been the boss's best signing so far, is still seen as our main man between the sticks. McGregor is approaching what could well be his final season of his career. He'll be 39 in January, with his Ibrox contract set to expire a few months after that in May. The former Hull City and Besiktas man certainly doesn't seem like a veteran though, and given that keepers can sometimes play even into their 40s, maybe we shouldn't write off the prospect of him signing an extension at some point in the future. But if it is to be McGregor's last year at Ibrox, then he'll be desperate to end it in style by winning a 4th league title at the club. He has been perhaps our most important player over the last 2 seasons, and he's likely to be again next year as we target success on the domestic front, as well as more progress in Europe. One of the players in front of him is likely to be Filip Helander, the Swedish defender who we signed for around £3.5 million from Bologna this time last year. Helander looked pretty composed during his first year at Ibrox, a campaign that was cut short through the suspension of football, as well as a foot injury he picked up in the Betfred Cup final against Celtic in early December. The 27-year-old limped off after 83 minutes of that Hampden clash and then missed our final 22 games of the season afterwards. Helander does have his faults. He isn't the fastest and can often be beaten by pacey forwards, like Lyndon Dykes showed for Livy in the first half of the season. But the Swede reads the game very well and saved some of his best performances for the Europa League, particularly away in Porto. He is probably our most accomplished centre-back, although Gerrard's soft spot for Connor Golson may mean that Helander is fighting it out with the likes of Nikola Katic and George Edmondson for the other central defensive berth. If Helander can stay injury free next season, he will certainly be an important player for us. While I mentioned the signings of Bassey and McLaughlin earlier, the club have of course also brought in one even more high profile arrival this summer. Big things will be expected of Yanis Hagi after the club took up the option to buy the Romanian after he had starred during a brief 3-month loan spell from Belgian side Genk. Hagi dazzled Ibrox on a few occasions during his short loan stint. Who can forget his late winner against Hibernian in February, or of course his 2 goals that helped to turn the tide against Braga. In total, he netted those 3 goals in 12 matches. He said his best stuff for the European stage, and Gers fans will be eager to see if he can replicate that in Scotland once the new season kicks off. The league is the overwhelming priority for the team next season, and that is where Hagi will be judged. But with a proper pre-season behind him and knowing that he's a permanent member of the Ibrox setup, we've got seriously high hopes for him. If you were to sit down and work out what players Steven Gerrard had improved most since coming to Ibrox, chances are that Ryan Jack would be right at the top of your list. The former Aberdeen man has become one of our most important players in recent seasons after being a bit part player in previous Rangers regimes. Next year is another big win for the midfielder as he aims to build on some of his recent showings and help lead the club to a major trophy. Some Gers fans actually reckon that Jack should be the club captain, but even though that honour belongs to James Tavernier, Jack is still one of the leaders in the dressing room. He was one of many players who were playing at their peak as 2019 drew to a close, and then he seemed to come back as a different man post-Dubai, like many of the other members of the squad. However, hopefully he can get back to the top form we're used to from Jack and lead us to some success. And that statement about players returning from Dubai as totally different guys could also apply to our star man, of course, Alfredo Morelos. The Colombian struck 29 goals last season, with all but one of them coming prior to the new year. 15 of them were in the Europa League, as El Buffalo showed that he was one of the top finishers on the continent. His 2020 form was more than a bit concerning though, and he often looked a little off the pace as he struggled to get into matches. Hopefully that was just a blip though, and he can now get back to his best form after several months of rest. If he can hit the 30 goal mark next season, then we will likely be in a very good place to have some success, both in Scotland and in the Europa League.